My name's Jackie Sumell, and I think I was invited to this residency in context as an artist, but I think I don't necessarily identify only as an artist. I identify as an artist and an activist predominantly. Of course, I'm a lot of other things, like a big sister and a girlfriend, and a great friend to a lot of people. But as it relates to In Context 3, I think artists and activists were the two predominant disciplines, and those are some of the foundations of how I think of myself, and how I make and how I create.
She's got really kind of quite intense interests in community and how you create and facilitate community and the kind of issues that communities face and how art can interact with that. The project she's chosen to do for this part of her residency is called A=AGHT, and it's about facilitating communication and a kind of a creation of a kind of an alternative but sort of still semi-real world between two distinct groups of youth. One is a group of youth in Tala and one is a group of youth in New Orleans, where she has a lot of connections and has worked before. And she facilitated this connection through using a mixture of technology and kind of hands-on work, which was an interesting combination to see in action. So she used the internet in terms of having a great website and an online forum which only the kids involved had access to.
This project in particular was a collaboration between young people in New Orleans and young people in Tala, which were the two places where I spent the most time over the last 2 years. A lot of the work that I do in New Orleans is community organizing, in a post-Katrina New Orleans in poor black communities. So it's exclusively political, and it's exclusively organizing and activist work. It's being active within these communities. Whereas the work that I did here in Tala, was peripheral because I'm not from here, and for me to come here and make some sort of overarching commentary about the politics would be a colonial mindset. It's not appropriate. But what I thought would be appropriate would be to get young people who are active, who are thinking, and who are part of these two different communities, and get them to explore sameness. And that's the basis of A=AGHT. I mean, A=AGHT is a metaphor that comes from the two existing towns, from Tala and NOLA, which is New Orleans, Louisiana. The idea that you can have two different spellings that manifest the same sound. In the same way, you can have two seemingly different communities, right? Like Tala, the kids in Tala look, feel, talk differently than the kids in New Orleans, right? So to get these two seemingly different communities to really explore commonness and explore sameness. And ultimately, what we did is we created this virtual space, or this world called A=AGHT, where the project ultimately empowered the young people to change things, to make decisions, to answer questions that are of immediate concerns in either one of those places through this virtual space.
Jackie Sumell's work practice over the 2 years is really interesting because she went through kind of a couple of processes in order to get to the final project that she ended up producing. And I think that project that she has done, A equals AGHT, will have a legacy for her as well, because she's made a series of relationships where she's worked with young people and encouraged them to think about sort of ideas around sort of utopian space or best possible space. So how would you make a perfect school, or how would you think a cemetery or a prison might look in your perfect world? So she's really drawing on the imaginations of other people to create her work, and I think her work practice is really interesting, and possibly was very satisfying for her because she made a lot of different types of relationships in order to do that. And she'd done some really interesting projects early on in her residency, and was hugely energetic in her engagement in it. But I suppose the one that kind of came to full fruition was the A equals AGHT.
Okay, so this is the school. We answered 2 questions in one go. It's what does the schools look like in A equals AGHT, and what does the zoo look like in A equals AGHT. So we combined the 2. There's no wild animals, they all have to be tamed because eating little children, yeah. So the front is all like jungly and stuff, and it's called School 35. So basically it means anyone else can do School, but none of them can be number 35 because that's our number.
Okay.
And you'll notice throughout all the models, and on this one there's solar panels, it's all self-sustainable, and because we don't want to waste energy because we're living in a cleaner environment. But there was lots of discussion, lots of colourful arguments about this, so we had decided that if somebody had done a crime so inhumane, unable to be rehabilitated, we'd banish them out of our little archway, so that's kind of out of AGHT and into the internet world.